What's up everyone and welcome back to DC's Comics. Today we'll be taking a look at the landscape and state of our favorite universes and whether or not now is the right time to be getting into them. We said we're not doing this again. So maybe you're wondering about the state of the comic universe as your focus is on the cinematic one, or vice versa. I mean, in recent years we have seen characters and storylines make their way to live action following very close to or soon after their inception in the comics. With the extensive nature of the comics through to the rapidly growing cinematic universes that now also include the interconnected series, some threads are very loosely connected. But when it comes to something like this and the history of these franchises, with DC having nearly 90 years, Marvel close to 85, and Star Wars approaching 50 years of history and mythos behind them, that sheer volume of content and lore can be overwhelming to even the most ardent of fans and enthusiasts, and even myself. For example, with me, I had kept up to date with Star Wars films, but never delved into the series or the expanded universe until The Mandalorian premiered, and that's not including the books, the comics, or the games factored in. It can be dissuading, especially when you think of how much there is, how much you don't know, and how much you still need to learn. But I wouldn't and haven't let that stop me, and neither should you. Because the answer to whether now is the right time, in my biased opinion, is yes. Of course it's yes. This is a comic book channel. I started this page to help and aid my fellow comrades, not discourage them. Isn't that what Twitter and the comments section are for? Any time is a great time to get into comic books and comic book movies and series. That's where taking it step by step comes in. You cannot let something like that stop you from the greatest rides and experiences that await you. There are characters and stories that will resonate with you like you could never have imagined, inducing those goosebump moments that are too good to be true. You are more than welcome to join in any of these fandoms. In fact, I encourage and implore you to.
This is the way.
Starting now gets you a head start before a plethora of new content becomes available in the coming months and years, as they have planned, which we're about to get into. There are multiple projects to add to their already vast libraries. For the most part, the core fundamentals and personality traits of these heroes and villains and characters doesn't change, just the grand scale and scope of the stories they have been or are currently involved in. From quick internet searches and bios to videos on YouTube, to the often self-contained stories and miniseries set apart from the main comic runs that can span thousands of issues or more. Allow various introduction points and avenues and places for you to begin. These avenues will provide you more than the base insight into these characters and worlds and bring you up to speed. And by utilizing these resources, you can be caught up in minutes. I am looking to add those very resources to this channel for you, so that you can jump in right away and start enjoying these franchises, and get a jump start if you want to join in on the MCU action. You're not a franchise on your own, despite how DC milks you, and yes, there is plenty of good content set outside of crime-infested. Just do your job. Just do your job. Check the Punisher's LinkedIn. Take some notes. So, as I was saying, you're keen on joining in on the MCU action, which at current has 30 movies, 31 I think now that Guardians is out, and 18 series in total, and counting. But these resources can make the thought of that less daunting, because why should you miss out on any of the fun? And we always look forward to welcoming fans to join in on these franchises and fandoms that don't completely take over our lives. We are always keen to have more fans to geek out with, especially as comic fans, where said comics are constantly rebooting and starting stories of characters all over. You're in luck with all those entry points, and what better place to start than at the beginning, with issue 1. At least that helps you establish the entry point and where to begin. But now is an even better time to get into things, with the current states of these universes being welcoming despite how far along they are. Perhaps now, at this point, more so than ever before. The current position of all of these franchises is at a point of freshly planned new eras, planned phases and chapters brimming with content. With the emerging Star Wars galaxy and Star Wars as a whole being mostly, if not just one big interconnected story. So pick your spot in this galaxy far, far away and punch it. get the high ground as they set out to begin a new saga of storytelling, ranging from projects in both film and series announced at Star Wars Celebration in April of this year. And let me tell you, it looks good. It brings new stories and characters which will require build-up. Perhaps the infamous origins story and the ever-faithful flashback sequence to aid you while highlighting the past. Star Wars also has projects set in all different time periods, from after Return of the Jedi to after the Rise of Skywalker, with Daisy Ridley set to reprise her role as Rey as she sets out to rebuild the Jedi Order 15 years after the events of the last film. Then, through to a film focused on the very first Jedi to wield the Force, and many more. From the newly announced slate with Ahsoka starting later this year, and I myself want to catch up on Star Wars Rebels. Yeah, I'm behind too, so don't feel too bad. Or at least judge me quietly as you've already ticked that one off twice. Then, over to DC. DC is set to kick off their new universe on the heels of the Universal reboot, thanks to The Flash, bringing a close to the DCEU and ushering in the DCU, which will see an end to the separate but concurrent Arrowverse, culminating ironically too thanks to The Flash. Damn, does this guy not learn the consequences of his actions? At least his planning, or lack thereof, works out as the new DCU commences as a result, which is set to include projects on both the big and small screen, beginning with the animated Creature Commando series, which features David Harbour, Frank Grillo, Sean Gunn, and Indira Varma, to name a few. What's interesting is that these characters will be voiced by the very same actors set to reprise those roles in live action. But the official beginning of the DCU is set to commence with James Gunn's Superman Legacy and a July 11th, 2025 release date. Sure, you may be joining the MCU in Phase 5, but it has only just begun. The MCU, despite using threads from their rich past, are in a rebuilding phase, which will include many new characters, which will require a starting point and introductions.
We haven't met yet.
I don't care.
But now is a great time as you will have enough content to lay the groundwork for the massive upcoming event films in Avengers, Kang Dynasty, and Avengers Secret Wars. The history is there for you to delve into, which rocks, especially once you're hooked and craving more.
I can do this all day.
Yeah, I know.
But there are constantly new stories being told and heroes and villains to be introduced. You at this point too can watch these chronologically and establish a perfect timeline for yourself. Barry, is that you? You mentioned a timeline and this guy's like, I'm gonna wreck it! Wrong universe. But as mentioned before, you have close to 50 Marvel projects to feast on, which is the perfect appetizer for what's to come. So now that I have briefed you on the states of our favorite universes, you can delve into an in-depth look of the upcoming slates of the cinematic, streaming, and comic series in detailed videos with the links below, where I'll be doing an in-depth video focusing individually on each, so head on over and get your fix. Joining these franchises for their fun and spectacle is much like planting a tree. The best time to have done so was 20 years ago, and the next best time to do so is now. But seriously, plant some trees and join some franchises.
Oh, by the way, this is a friend of mine, Tree.
I am Groot!
Until next time, laugh, take it easy, and feast on all this juicy content to satiate your geek. So, from the D at DC's Comics, this is the way.
This is the way.
This is the way. This is the way. This is the way.